why don't we jump into Microsoft could be working on a Windows handheld mode for Steam Deck alikes. This is super exciting. Not because I want the Steam Deck to fail or because I want SteamOS to see any less development, not because I think that Windows is an alternative to SteamOS or that I want it to become this easier path. Blah, blah, blah. None of those things, but because competition is good. Valve's competition in the space lit a fire under Microsoft, and we shouldn't let Valve run unopposed either. I mean, look how little innovation there was in Steam until EA and Ubisoft basically said, look, we're going to take our ball and we're going to go home. Well, Valve innovated. Would they have done it anyway? I don't know, maybe. Maybe not, though. So this is exciting. Prolific Microsoft leaker Walking Cat shared 2 videos on Twitter that were taken from a pitch for an internal Microsoft Hackathon project showcasing a Windows handheld mode. The pitch acknowledges that the handheld PC market is growing thanks to a device called the Steam Deck. This is a direct quote. And shows prototype features that would make Windows easier to use on such devices, such as optimizing the onboarding experience, which right now is very kludgy, a cross-platform game launcher built right into Windows. Are we going back to the games folder from Vista? Because I'm actually down.
I liked it.
It was kind of awesome.
It was good. I complained very recently on a WAN show about how it's kind of annoying right now about how everything is trying to be your games launcher. And like, I would actually just prefer one of them.
And if Microsoft had stuck with it, like one of the things that it did was it pushed game developers to move their save games to one place. So instead of having it sometimes being in app data roaming and sometimes being in program files in the game folder and sometimes being in my games and sometimes just being in my documents, like, man, game developers have never been able to decide where your saves go. So Microsoft, one of the good things they did with Vista and with the games folder was they consolidated it. It all went in one place. So when I had to reformat or whatever else, because cloud saves weren't as much of a thing, it was one folder that I dragged, and it was good to go, right?
Now you got to deal with like, is it in app data or is it saved somewhere else? Or what the heck's
is it
going
cloud
on?
saved? Oh man, cloud saves are both a blessing and a curse.
Yeah.
I set my kids up to play It Takes Two in the car at one point, and they were like, hey, what happened to our game? I was like, I don't know. Oh yeah, it turns out It Takes Two just doesn't cloud save on Steam. It's like just not supported. And then I saw this really awful video on, I don't know if it was TikTok or something. Anyway, someone was talking about how their Animal Crossing save. They had like 500 hours in Animal Crossing, and their Switch got corrupted during an update, and it's gone. Even though they do pay Nintendo for their stupid hostage-taking cloud save feature. Nintendo was just like, oh yeah, you have to manually enable Animal Crossing saves because they're big. This is a paid service, Nintendo. It's paid.
That's actually so brutal. I had seen like people were upset about Animal Crossing saves, but I didn't know why. That's so brutal.
This is something we've talked...
It's actually like almost unbelievable levels of brutal.
Of just hating your customers.
Yeah, like what the... Oh, man. Ugh. You mentioned when talking about the Mario movie, you're like, yep, it's good, clean fun, like Nintendo. It sucks that Nintendo has to come with this incredibly ugly downside all the time.
Yep.
It's like, what? It wouldn't be that hard to just be like the company that's just solid.
To be a Super Mario
Are
bro.
the games expensive? Do they never go on discount? Yeah, sure. But like, they're always good.
You can back up your save to an SD card for no charge because the SD card slot is right there on the console, and why wouldn't we let you do that?
That kind of stuff, right? Like, it seems like it would make sense for the brand, but they just can't. They just have to be buttholes. And it's like, man, why? I don't know. I do have to bring back, I don't know if you mentioned this, sorry, I've been working on something. But this was a hackathon project.
Right.
So like, I wouldn't take this as a like, they're working on it.
But there's other cool ideas.
But
like driver handling, touch keyboard, controller navigation of keyboard and common Windows elements like task view, controller support outside of Steam, and more. Like Luke says, this is no guarantee, but The Microsoft employees who made the presentation seem passionate about it, saying that Windows and Xbox app users deserve this and need this. They're so right. How have Windows and Xbox not merged more?
Yeah.
They're even doing a lot of the things right.
But not 100% of the way. And these hackathons are often positioned to be able to find projects like this. So it is very possible that this does get done. I just don't want people being like, oh, this is coming? Cool. Because it's not necessarily coming.
There's no word on whether they've started any kind of development on the project, but as PC World points out, they'd be kind of dumb not to. With the proliferation of these devices and with the gap that Valve's inertia seems to have left in the market, the ROG Ally is outstanding.
Yeah.
The amount of time that I've spent with it now is much more than the last time I talked about it, and like I was just
it's replaced the Steam Deck for you then?
Yvonne and I were having one of our home meetings because she can never talk to me at work because no one will let her.
It's very hard to get a meeting with you.
Yeah, so
it's actually like a battle every time.
So anyway, she had a whole bunch of stuff in her inbox that was tagged "Discuss with Linus," and I was just chilling on the floor in the computer room playing Vampire Survivors on the ROG Ally, with it being completely dead silent in the power saving mode because it's not a super demanding game. And I mean, it's obviously a pretty like brain turned off kind of game, just like essentially having a meeting.
Yeah.
It runs, it's so smooth, 120 hertz. It's way more powerful than the Steam Deck. Way more powerful. And it's not going to be the only one.
Is it cool to have a computing device where you had a very significant performance jump that was noticeable?
Yeah.
Because I feel like that hasn't super been a thing for a while. But I recognized only just now, but I've had this feeling the whole time you've been talking about it, that there's like a different level of excitement. Because this like super perceivable jump in performance is not so much of a thing lately.
No, it's not. It's twice as fast.
Yeah, and that's crazy.
And it is still a thing.
And like if an SSD was twice as fast right now,
it wouldn't matter.
Most users are not going to notice.
But okay, so that's exactly the thing. There are still big upgrades. The 4090 is an enormous upgrade over the 3090 for $1,600 US.
Yeah.
Starting at
for a single component of your computer.
But here we're talking about, I hope we're talking about a device that is under or around $1,000. Right? And that's for the whole thing.
It's a complete device, yes.
Yes, it's a complete experience. It's not an add-in board that you put in another thing that also costs a lot of money, right?
And also like needs its own level of heightened support because you need like a crazy power supply and solid cooling and all this other kind of stuff.
Exactly. No, I'm jazzed. And don't imagine for a second that if ASUS is successful with the ROG Ally, that you're not going to see other PC manufacturers chime in, because this is something I was trying to figure out. It's like, who the heck is Neo? Who is One X Player? Who is, GPD? Like, who are these guys? And I know who they are. Like, I have communicated with them. I understand who they are.
He actually very directly knows.
But my point was that they are not ASUS.
They're not major players.
They are not MSI, Gigabyte. And if these guys can get to market, if the minimum order quantities and the relationship building with the AMDs or the Intels of the world is so relatively easy, absolutely nothing would prevent a manufacturer with the expertise of an ASUS, MSI, Gigabyte, Acer, Dell, whoever, nothing would prevent them from coming out with one. Like, okay.
Do you think this is going to be
Let's
bad?
Go. It's a laptop, but it doesn't... Sure.
Do you think it's going to be bad for the GPDs, Neos, etc. of the world? Yeah. That sucks.
Hold on. They still have an opportunity to maintain their niche. GPD is the only one who really takes the keyboard seriously. Okay, so there's still room for them. Neo, they were doing some really cool things with Space. So their skin/launcher, some really cool ideas. Their overlay, really cool ideas there for being able to, kind of like the Steam Deck, right? Adjust your brightness and your volume and your power profile and whatever else while you're in game. Really cool ideas there. I feel like compared to, I don't know, 6-8 months ago, it's just kind of more bloated and buggy and hasn't really added anything useful for me. And so if they can really do a great job of that and make that supplementary to anything that Microsoft builds into Windows, I think it could be really good. Like Aya and Neo at their best has had way better auto switching of joy to mouse and then switching into controller mode as you launch games and then go back to the Windows desktop. But then it got really bad around the time Windows 11 launched, which I would have to assume is something to do with Microsoft. Thank you very much. But I don't know that for sure. Whereas Asus right now, it's pretty rough. I basically just use a touchscreen.
Right.
Like it sucks. Like they have a toggle for it, but as far as I can tell, it doesn't work.
And there's room for these there's absolutely room for these companies to have acquisitions happen. You even mentioned like there's all these major players in the space that could do it, but there's like software advantages or whatever that these small companies have. That's like exactly why those things happen.
Yeah, 100%. But then if I don't think it would though. Like I'm thinking of everything I know about MSI and their product development. And
I don't think MSI would do it.
I think
they
would do it. They'd just be like, no, we'll do it ourselves, and it doesn't matter if it's crappy.
But like Alienware.
Okay. Would Dell? No, Dell would build it themselves, and it would be less crappy
But
than
still crappy.
MSI. Yeah. Like it's just,
Dang.
what is it about hardware companies and just being utterly unable to do software?
It's actually like I don't find that there's a ton of companies that can do both. It's actually kind of difficult to cross over.
Yeah, they're like, why is Apple, the first to cross $1 trillion
Microsoft.
valuation?
Yeah, because they can do both. It's hard.
Yeah, Intel software is like, their consumer-facing software is kind of janky.
Do we want to talk about the ARC stuff?
Yeah. Like there's definitely software things that I'm pretty sure Intel does pretty well. Like my understanding is a lot of their like compiler stuff is very robust.
A lot of their like hardcore behind the scenes type of stuff is pretty solid. A lot of their user facing stuff, the UIs look like they're from the early 2000s. Whatever he was even
and
called.
That's when they work.
Art Control or whatever was a hot pile of garbage.
Yeah.
I don't know. They feel extremely not modern on the user side or completely broken in regards to
when you look at like a software company like Facebook trying to do hardware, it's like, oh, Portal.
Yeah. Like it's actually pretty hard to cross.
I mean, they technically do hardware now, but they acquired Oculus. And what have they realistically launched as Meta? Like developed and launched. Okay, so
they've done headsets.
They but they still had a lot of the Oculus team when they developed, Rift S or when they developed Quest 1.
Oh, I see. So the Pro is like the only.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's a flop as far as I can tell. It's not a bad device, but it's not commercially viable.
Someone's saying their driver support is normally amazing. Yeah, like the behind the scenes stuff from Intel is traditionally quite good.
Yeah.
I will 100% give them that. It's more the user facing stuff.